Welcome to the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm Mason Roshdian. Each week I sit down with people in the legal world and beyond to talk about the strategies that are actually working for them in law, in life, and everything in between. Real conversations, real lessons, and ideas you can actually use. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm your host, Mason Roshdian. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Katie Padilla, founder of Bloom Family Law and a certified family law specialist here in California. Katie practices collaborative divorce, helping clients navigate family law matters through honest communication and thoughtful settlement rather than courtroom battles. What makes her approach especially distinctive is the way she combines legal advocacy with education, empathy, and her training as a coach and a meditation teacher. Katie believes divorce is not simply an ending, it's a major life transition. Her work helps people move through the transition with greater clarity, confidence, and self understanding while remaining mindful of the impact on the entire family, especially children. Today, we'll explore how people can approach divorce with less fear, build resilience through difficult transition, and emerge feeling stronger and more grounded. Katie, welcome to the podcast. I am glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mason. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I gave you a little bit of a background of what you do. So please give us more and tell us who you are and how you got here.
Yeah, so my name's Katie Padilla. I run a law firm called Bloom Family Law in Oakland, and I've had my own practice for about 10 years total now, just different iterations of what that practice looks like, but it's been my own business because I think law is so personal. And when I first started practicing, I was very, very called to have a hand and a say in what my career looked like and what my reputation was and who I wanted to work with to make this, a good fit because people deserve to have, someone who they feel like they can be comfortable with. And I just wanted to be myself so that I could find people that would make this practice, feel like something that felt good at the end of the day. And it's been a kind of a journey, with the practice of law. I used to litigate. I no longer litigate anymore. And we can talk more about, why. But there's just been it's been a very reflective journey for me. And it's something I kind of use my practice of law as kind of like a yoga and my entrepreneurship. I learn a lot about myself and I wouldn't have it any other way. And yeah, it's been a wild ride and a great adventure.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm hearing from you is I can tell you're genuine. You're not one of those attorneys who really pounds her chest and wants to fight all the time and say, me, look at me, which is really good, especially in in our business today. We get that a lot. So I'm
Mhm.
glad to see someone who's more in tune with what they want, what their clients want, you know, the whole everything, not just, hey, well, how much money can you get? Stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. And I would say in the beginning of my career, I was kind of that attorney that would bang on my chest. And I paid close attention because it never felt right. Something always felt off. And I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And I think I overcompensated a little bit because I came in, I look very young. I would dress the way that I wanted to dress. And so I would come into court and people kind of laugh at me. I'd had sometimes opposing counsel say, like, you look like my daughter. You look like you're younger than my daughter. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Here's kind of the power move. And I would kind of overcompensate earlier on in my early 30s. And it never kind of felt right. And I think I figured out why. It's because I was losing attention and focus from my client to now this performance, this showmanship that now we're talking about symbols. And I started to kind of realize that, like, uh-oh, maybe there's some of my insecurities or things that I'm trying to prove through being a lawyer or being this, like, this person that can show up and be so powerful and control the room. And it just felt like I was a little off path. So that's something I started to play with a lot
mhm.
and really make sure, like, no matter what, my guiding light, my North Star is like, does the client feel held right now? Is your focus the client? This is their journey, and don't take that away from them. So that's something I still play with, and I'll continue to
Yeah.
practice the rest of my career.
Was this something that happened over time? Was it a particular case or something that happened that made you kind of move towards this direction?
Yeah, I think it never really I think I'm a performer at the heart of this. So I went to law school, I think, because I had a chip on my shoulder. I had something to prove. I wanted certain external validation. Um, and then when I became a lawyer, I was like, this doesn't feel right, but I can perform really, really well. And I acted in high school, in junior high, and elementary school. And I was like, I can pretend and I know how to fake it till you make it. And so I was performing. I was using this performance. It was a performance art almost. And it was a little crude because that's what happens at the beginning. And so with that performance, I always paid close attention to my body has very strong signals that I can't really ignore, even if I try to. And so I was kind of playing with that, like this doesn't fit right, this doesn't sit right. And people were telling me, certain people, like my parents, like, hey, sometimes you just need to get calloused to things, right? Like put armor up and like you'll be able to show up. And I was like, okay, I guess that's the right way. But I think my heart knew I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be more vulnerable, open, more authentic, more genuine, and unique. I think I'm a really cool person and I wanted to share that. But I got lost in the performance a little bit.
Hmm.
And then I would, I had incredible imposter syndrome, right? And I was like watching all these other people, like thinking like they have it down. They know what they're doing. They're so scary. And then I would try to emulate them. So I wasn't even, I was able to do something and it was cool, but it wasn't me.
Right.
And then some of these people that I admired so much, they were some of the scariest people in the courtroom, And I saw a quick succession of people that I really admired and looked up to have some really horrible events happened. Some people ended up dying. There was suicide that was
Oh,
involved in one of the deaths. There was substance abuse issues. And it all happened. I kind of think the signs are there in the universe. And I was kind of like, getting to the end of the rope, is there anything in this performance for me? Do I really feel safe when I go in and act big and strong and are we doing the right thing? Are we actually getting to the root cause of what's happening? And then I saw some of these practitioners fall down and I was like, noted. Doesn't matter how
yeah.
much armor we put up, we all feel
Right.
it. This can be very toxic. And yeah,
Yeah. I
wanted
mean,
to shift.
the rate of burnout in our industry is pretty significant. I remember when I first transitioned and opened my own office 20 years ago from a defense standpoint. I would run into attorneys, especially family law attorneys. At least three of them said to me, take every Friday off. You need that time. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's very difficult. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna ask my assistant to turn on the air because all of a sudden it got really hot in here.
Here too. It's a hot
It's like
day.
I don't. It's been so you're in. How hot is it up there right now?
So let's see. Right now I'm in Carmel Valley, which is where I
Hmm.
live. I don't know, it's probably about like 85 right now, but it's early. So that means it's gonna be a hot one today. It gets really hot in August, like everywhere in
Yeah,
California.
I mean it's been like in the high 90s and triple digits last few days. I know. It's like, oh my God. And we're only beginning of we're literally midway up through summer. So we got another 6 weeks to go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first question is, do you work with couples or individuals?
Both. So we do mediation with couples, and I really like doing that. We moved our entire practice at Bloom is now completely out of court. That was a big pivot for me to be like, this is what I believe in. And I do think sometimes people have to go to court in family law. And I know incredible people who can do that and do it ethically. It's just not a world that I wanted to be a part of anymore after 12 years. And I didn't want to be the shepherd into that world. So, like, especially with family law, it's like, let's try to keep it confidential. Let's try to keep it, on track and focused on the future instead of getting back
Hmm.
into the emotions that can come up in some really big ways. Let's try to keep this family unit, kind of as healthy as possible when there's children so that, this is something that the parents can work together in the future. And I think that's great, like moving away from court and having different people and knowing all the different players and being able to tap people and knowing the community. It's just there's a lot of people here that want to help. So
Right.
I love being able to assist people, whether it's the couple that's going through it or whether it's an individual that needs a little bit of advice and hand holding. And in mediation, when we're working with both parties, we're just trying to bring them together, organize the structure and hold the container to say, where's the zone of potential agreement here? Like, what do we agree on? How are we going to figure this out? How are we going to move this forward? And then when I work individually with people, I'm their legal advocate. So I'm saying, here's the pros and cons, and this is where you could get more or less. A mediator doesn't do that. It's more of holding the container. And I love both types of work.
So like I said, when I transitioned to open my own office, in the beginning, you got to bring money in, right? So I did family law for a little bit. It's not
Mm,
my thing. But
yeah.
I remember going to court one time and I was sitting in the galley, looking at other people who were up there arguing. I'll never forget this. There was a hearing going on with, with husband and wife, both from LAPD. Okay. So brought this motion and they even reported each other to internal affairs. So,
Wow.
So what do you think the motion was on? Was about how high should their kid's haircut be? I am not kidding. I
Mm,
mean, they're both spending this money
mm,
with their attorneys, and the judge was not happy. The
mm-hmm.
judge literally said, "You know what? You bring your son here. I'm gonna bring my own barber, and I'm gonna do what I think is right."
Yeah.
Yeah, it could get pretty bad, and that's your. I mean, look, it's bad enough when you have a divorce that you're going through as breaking up as a couple, but for your kid, what are you doing? Don't do that to your child.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the thing that gets lost. I think it's the human condition. It tends to get lost. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been with my husband for almost 20 years and we have two young children. And it's a very intentional path of ours to try to not pass on any intergenerational trauma that we're aware of. And we also know that there's things that we're not aware of and we're going to pass it on. We're not going to break every cycle, this go around. And we still are so blind, right? We're so blind. And we use support through like therapy and through each other to be like, how can
mhm,
we stay on track to be that beacon for our children? And if we make a mistake, to have someone, a third party, because we don't always know when we're dysregulated that we're trying to kind of maybe pull other people into our dysregulation. So it's really nice to have another adult in the room to be like, hey, you might be out of your zone of tolerance right now, like you're talking really harshly, because I just think we don't know, and it doesn't mean
right,
we're bad. Like, and so there's the bad othering, right? But every time my husband's told me, like, you have a harsh tone, I don't think that. In my mind, I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm not scary. I'm scared. Right. And that's the beauty of it, is kind of being like, oh, the human condition forgets some of these things and we
right.
have blind spots because we're not on the other side of us. And how do we try to kind of drop our weapons, drop our swords, and try to kind of walk each other home and hold hands? And I think in a family dynamic, whether that family is a nuclear family or has transitioned out of that, like 50% of families will in America at some point,
Right.
that's something that we can still try to kind of maintain the forest through the trees, the picture. And to be totally honest, like you were talking about that case with family law, that was at a certain point, like, no, like, this isn't. There's a lot of people who will think, hey, if they're gonna fight, I'll take them to court. They're gonna pay somebody, they might as well pay me. And I was like, no, you don't know the karmic repercussions. That this is my belief. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But my belief was there's karmic repercussions that are going to come from this. The animosity could last
Right.
decades.
Yeah.
And really, what are we really getting at? Again, we're playing in the symbols. What's the root cause here? And the child's probably suffering in all of this because there's going to be all kinds of ways that this conflict is pouring down onto the kid that the parents probably don't even understand at this point.
So I know you're also a coach, right? Tell
Yeah.
me about tell me about that.
Yeah, so I got trained as a coach about 3 years ago through a program through UC Davis, and I loved it. It was really, really interesting. I came in to just try to kind of inform my legal practice. That's why I wanted to learn about coaching. I think that I've always been really good at connecting with my clients and leading my clients. And it was a really interesting experience because I was talking to my teacher when I was, going through the coaching program, and I was like, I connect with my clients and, this is blah, blah, blah. She was like, well, how do you connect with them? And I said, I tell them what to do. They love it. And she was like, well, that's not that we're doing something different here with coaching. Because
Yeah.
kept telling people what to do through my coaching practice. So I learned how to kind of step back and give people space and how to help them come to their own solutions. Because in fact, I might not know best, even though I'm the expert here. You're the expert of your life. You
Right.
might come up with a creative solution I never could have envisioned. And so when I shifted my practice through my coaching training to kind of open up the space and be like, here's these different options and the pros and cons of each. What do you think? Oftentimes the clients come back with something much more brilliant than anything I could have ever constructed. So I think that's the magic. And that's how I've kind of brought in coaching. And then I've tapped other coaches to bring into my law firm to actually work with our clients who might feel completely overwhelmed and like, oh no, I'm going to go into fight, flight, or freeze to help navigate them. And then it makes my job easier too, because it's like, okay, you thought about this, you had someone hold the container for you. And these are coaches that have been doing it for a very, very long time. So I was like, bring in the experts. I don't need to be everything to everyone. I'll be your attorney, have the coaches. I'm coaching informed.
Mhm.
And let's see what we can kind of create here.
So how can people get a hold of you if they want your services?
Yeah, so you can check out my website, bloomlegalcoach.com. And we have a form. You can either send it through the website or you can give us a call or email us at hello@bloomlegalcoach.com and we can jump right in. It's myself and my partner Rena right now, and we're the attorneys. And then we have a whole team of coaches, and then a bunch of incredible people who are helping out with like all of the admin stuff and running the operations of the business on a daily basis.
Got it. So as I understand it, there is a time to litigate, but it doesn't have to happen all the time,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people who probably are thinking about maybe getting a divorce or they're worried about their kids. So the better approach is to go through somebody like you who can help them transition easier than just fighting all the time, right? Yeah.
I think so. I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
even though I think court is sometimes needed, sometimes there is a gray area of the law where we're just like, we can't figure this out. Or
Mhm.
maybe someone's being a total bully.
Yeah.
And that's one of those levers you can pull out when someone's being a bully to say enough's enough, because you bring the darkness to light. You bring the darkness to light in a court of law. Come on. That's the stuff we dream about when we've been
Yeah.
wronged, right? And there are times that happens where people are like, this person is not going to show up in any type of good faith. And in
No.
fact, they are kind of steamrolling me right now. And it's so contrary to the law that it's like, well, let's go in and have the judge tell them, right? Like throw the book at them. And that feels, and I'm not gonna lie, it feels so good. It's probably a little bit egoic, but it feels so good when you go in as an attorney and you were like, boom, I told you. Why didn't you listen to me? I hope you're embarrassed now. I would look at the
Yeah.
opposing counsels and be like, it is egoic. It's very egoic. And it's human, right? So I get it. I understand sometimes we need that. I also have told my clients before, the court of law, it's not the halls of justice that you think it is. Judges are very biased. Who they might, even if it's a great judge, they might be having a bad day. Everyone's human. They don't know your family. You have on a short cause hearing, we're talking about 15 to 20 minutes to kind of give an entire life story and have a judge make a decision. And you're taking the power away from the actual family. And it just becomes very cookie cutter because we're just following California law. So I just think there's a lot of room for evolution. And I just want people to think critically before they think court is where you go, because that's the legitimate place. In fact, I'm like, no, that's a dark place. You
Right.
go there when all else fails, because it will drain your money and it will drain your energy. More importantly, it will drain your energy. And I've watched my clients who have been engaged in years long litigation because they had to. And
Right.
at the end, they were just wiped out. They were wiped out. It did a number on them. And I just want people to be aware of that. What are you trading?
So when a couple comes to you or an individual and for the first consultation, what's the biggest obstacle? I mean, what's the biggest issue that you usually see with them? I
Hmm.
mean, is there one that stands out usually?
Yeah, I would say usually by the time they come to me, it's like kind of that initial stage of like we ripped off the band-aid. And usually there had been a couple years, if not more, of before like there was just kind of apathy. So it was like smooth sailing, but not really because there was
Mhm.
like this underlying simmering tension. And so then by the time they come to me, maybe they're talking about some things they haven't talked about in a very long time because they just weren't even communicating. And so there's like communication needs to kind of be worked on, as well as we need to check the resentment and the contempt that's coming up because that is there. That is there. We also need to check any stories we have where we are the victim and they are the villain. And I say this, with qualification because I do work with abuse survivors. But I do think it's very important that whenever we have, these events happen to us, that we look at it and say, okay, what can I do differently? What's in my power to control that I can do differently next time? And I've noticed a lot of people, especially at the very beginning stages of divorce, it's the very beginning of a grieving process. It's very hard for someone to say, this is what I think I brought to the situation. And oftentimes they're in a very polarized stance, pointing the fingers. They're a villain. I'm a victim. I can't believe I've been
Mhm.
wronged. And so I work with clients to try to open that up to be like, we want to make sure that whatever happened, that we can mine for whatever it is that when you're moving forward in the next relationship, you can try to show up a little bit differently to try to kind of help yourself and live a little bit more in alignment. So I think those are the big things. It's emotional
Okay.
barriers, and it's emotional energy work.
So if you had to give one advice to somebody who comes to you, an initial, or they're thinking about, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to get a divorce. Do you have like one advice you would give to anybody who's considering that?
Yeah, I think if somebody was like, I'm not quite sure if I want to get divorced, I don't know what's going on, I'm having these different things come up. I would say don't start with it. Definitely don't start with an attorney because there's attorneys that truly believe that it will be in your best interest to just follow the court system and just file immediately. And I would say they think they're doing the right thing, and whether or not it is, I don't know. But like just before you reach out to an attorney, maybe you reach out to a coach first, or you kind of like engage in some type of respite for yourself. You take some time away, spend some time envisioning what it is that you actually want. Especially women in particular, when they come
Mhm.
to me, we talk about like, what do you want? And then they don't really know what they want or what do you value? And I know for myself, I didn't know what I valued until my therapist asked. This was about 6 years ago. And I was like, I actually, I mean, I could kind of rattle some stuff off. And we spend a lot of time thinking about like, what are my values? What are my canons? And so now I do that with my clients. Like, what are the
Mhm.
canon of how we want to show up? What's really important to you? And I really like that. I really love, that type of work of being able to kind of help land people and say like, are you oriented in space and time? Do you feel confident? Do you feel comfortable? So I would say working with a coach first. Coaching has been very helpful for me. It's future oriented. And so you have someone kind of helping you set goals and then, trying to take these actionable steps to achieve those goals. And it's really helped me get my head straight and understand where I'm at in the fog. And that's where I would want someone to start because the more education and the more kind of inner meeting you have with yourself, the easier this process is going to be for you.
Now, would that change if there's kids involved or same kind of advice?
Oh, no, if anything, I would say if kids are involved, like, more so, make sure
Okay.
you're getting your head straight and being able to see this forest through the trees, having someone that's helping you kind of zoom out so you can see this 20 years from now. What does this mean? What does this look like for the type of parent you want to be? And I think, with kids in particular, it's like it's a different layer. It's not just the layer of how am I going to meet myself deeper as I go through this and try to kind of be in alignment and try to assert myself where I need to assert myself because there will be direct conflict. But then with kids, it's a deeper thing too of like, wow, I'm going to be connected to this person, whether I like it or not, the rest of my life, and whatever
Yeah.
happens with that child, even as they become an adult, we're going to be connected around that. So, how can we start? To me, I think the gift there is like, how can you start to surrender some of that resentment? Because you have to accept that this person is going to be in your life and you have to accept them for who they are. And that's a practice. And I think it requires a lot of support.
So, do you also have coaching sessions and help for the kids for them to transition also, or
Like
no?
coaching sessions
That's
specific
separate.
for the children.
Yeah.
We don't actually. We don't. And there's not a whole lot of resources, even in therapy, like, play therapy based for kids. And it's something that I think is could use a little bit of attention and a little bit of innovation because my parents went through divorce when I was very young. And I will say I became very aware very early on of certain dysfunctionality, that resulted from some emotions that came up throughout all of it. And I think any kid who's been through it can be like, yeah, that resonates with me. My parents thought they were keeping me out of the conflict, but they actually weren't. I heard everything.
Right.
I knew what was going on. I thought it was my fault. When they talked poorly about the other parent, I took that on personally because I had not yet individuated from my parents. I was still a child. And these are just I think we could spend a lot more time having some services and a community for anyone who's going through this because so many people are going through it. We're going to continue to keep going through it. And so how do we just try to kind of turn this into something that can be like grist for the mill, for evolution?
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you also do meditation?
I do.
Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so I started meditating a few years ago pretty regularly, and I'm actually taking a course right now that'll be done at the end of 2026. It was a 2-year program, a meditation teacher training program, where we just got to do a deep dive into learning about, just more of like the Buddhist principles and the teachings behind everything, and create a little sangha, and it's been very beautiful. And I love meditation. You know, I guess the best way I can kind of describe it, I hear a lot of people say I'm not good at it, right? And I used to say that too. I just can't do it. I'm just not one of those people. And it's like, no, you are good at it. If you're saying that you can't do it, that means you're aware that your thoughts aren't ceasing. And that's the
Right.
beginning of it. And you just stick with it and you just play with it and you don't judge yourself when the thoughts come up and you learn little tools to let the thoughts go. And it's all about interrupting that rapid fire, kind of like this thought turns into this thought. Now it's a negative story. Now I'm in rage. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, why don't we try to catch it a little bit sooner? You start to feel something. Okay. So, hold your body, shut my eyes. When I'm upset, when I get overwhelmed, and I have very big feelings, and I used to, unfortunately, I've raged out in the past, especially early on when I was like becoming that, big bad attorney. There was times when I talked to people in ways that I am not proud of at all. And so it's like, this is your responsibility. This is your shadow. You need to work with it so you're not putting more harm out into the world. And that's why I was like, I'm not good at meditation, but I guess I'll try it. I guess I have to. And it was really nice to be able to ease into it. And I'll say, the first silent meditation retreat that I went to, the first day they told us, hey, you're wired and tired. We don't know this until we
Mhm.
leave space for the plates to drop, but everyone out there is wired and tired because it's constant. They said the first 3 days of this retreat you're going to sleep a lot because you are so exhausted and you are finally giving your body space and time to relax. Mason, no joke. I slept 17 hours a day the first 3
Whoa.
days. No joke. And then the rest of the hours that I was up, I was meditating, and doing it in community felt like I could feel that energetic pull, that energetic
Yeah.
slide. And so I
Yeah.
was able to slide into it a little bit easier. And then on the 5th day was the last day. They said, as you go back out there into the world, I want you to remember most people have never had this taste of letting those plates drop for that
Mm.
long. And just remember, just be kind. We're all
Yeah.
out there. We're all wired and tired. You're going to be too, and continue to make space for respite, to have a break from your thoughts, have a break
Yeah.
from your mind, drop into your heart.
So, I mean, I've always wanted to do that. So, once in a while, I was doing like a 20-minute at a time, but I get so look, when I sit there, I get anxious, like I gotta be doing something else. So sometimes I'm in my office, I'll just put on a 5-minute meditation. I gotta start somewhere. So you just gotta quiet the mind, quiet everything. And you're right, you come out feeling more energetic, more clear thought, everything. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the best. It's so
Yeah.
good. And you're right. Yeah, you just start somewhere, right? Like when I first started, it was like 1 minute because it was such, we call it monkey mind. It was just go everywhere and start planning and lists. And like, hey, attorneys are really good at that. We learned how to multitask a long time ago,
Mhm.
And that's what I realized. Like I used to be so proud of my ability to multitask. And then now it's kind of like, no, it's about being present with that one task. And it's still a learning for me.
Yeah.
But you just start somewhere and then you just make it regular and it will grow because it really is an invitation home.
Yeah. So where do you see your practice going? Just do you want to grow it some more? You want to keep it the way it is? Where do you want to go
Yeah.
with it?
I've had so many different iterations in my practice where we've had, larger firms with more attorneys, smaller, where it was just kind of like me and, someone else. I think right now we're at a point I have been doing a lot of talking and kind of public speaking to try to kind of call people in who have the same ideologies that I do. And I've called in this really cool community. So we're going to be onboarding a couple more attorneys over the next couple months. And they're folks that I'm very excited about that I think I'm not just trying to bring anyone on right now. It's like, no, it's like you are engaged with this mission. And what this mission is like we're trying to create a legal cooperative. I want to play with like the hierarchy of law firms. I don't
Hmm.
like how I didn't feel great when I was an associate and like you could see how much money, the owner was making. Now I know why, because there's a lot of work that they're doing. But that's why I'm trying to tap people who want to take a part of leading the future of the organization. Because I don't want to hold everything on top and make all of the money. I want us all to share responsibilities and all make great money. Nobody's going to get super, super, super rich, but we can make great money doing great work and all
Right.
care about the organization. So that's the future of it. And after I bring these folks on, I think it's, where it's like we are going to just kind of like do our work and really turn this into kind of more of a think tank is what I'm thinking of. Like, how do we help to provide or tap other people for holistic services that are, going through family transitions. And that I'm really excited about. Start having more kind of those academic conversations within a big team and really pushing the
Right.
needle forward and saying, how can we make this process as, how can we make it a little bit more comfortable for people?
Now tell me about your public speaking.
Hmm.
You said
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah, so I try to speak, wherever I can. I'm always like reaching out to my alma mater, saying like I'll speak to students,
Hmm.
I like to speak to student groups. I like to have workshops, I like to hold workshops. I held a retreat at Bloom for the first time in February. It was for women going through divorce. I thought it could be really cool to bring women going through divorce together and do yoga and kind of some somatic processing, value mining. And so, I'm able to kind of speak through different things that I put on through Bloom, through the workshop, and then through other community organizations. I've helped. There's this small like women's group that I was a part of, like a therapy group, and there's a men's component as well. So it's break free and breakthrough. And I've spoken like to students with breakthrough about social emotional learning and how to process some difficult emotions. Like high school kids. And I try to speak whenever I can on podcasts, and I speak about how I feel about the practice of law and family law, and where I see room for innovation in family law. And I also speak out on foster youth rights because that's a very near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I don't think there's enough attention
Yeah.
that people are paying to
Ah,
this.
all right. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask the question that I ask all my guests. You know where I'm going. So, if you had your 10-year-old Katie next to you and you could give her one advice based on what you know today, what advice would you give her?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this because you kind of told me this is that question at the end. I was like, this is so interesting. I was even talking to my kids. I was like, what would you tell your 5-year-old self? My son said, I haven't made many mistakes. I'm only 9. So I don't think I'd really tell myself anything. I was like, that's cool. I think I would tell my 10-year-old self, 10 was a hard time for me. There was a hard transition there. There were so many sets of events that happened where I kind of went offline. I went dark for about a decade and still got stuff done, but was being very self-destructive on purpose, for attention or because I just didn't care, or I don't know exactly why, I'll play with that the rest of my life. And I think that I kind of lost a little bit of my light and my confidence in that era. And it was something that I was able to find again in the future. It's never lost. But I think I would tell my 10-year-old self, like, hang in there. Um, it is going to be okay. And you are going to have a more complex and nuanced experience of what this life is all about because of some of these experiences that are happening for you. I know it feels like they're
Mhm.
happening to you, and I know it feels very, very, very unfair. And I just want you to remember that anger is just a secondary emotion for the deep despair that you feel underneath. And don't forget that you see that despair not only in you, but the people that you're also judging right now while you're trying to figure out who you want to be as an adult. And you will make it through. You're strong and you got this. And you're going to have a rich, kind of depth of experience as a result. And that's something you're going to really be proud of as an adult.
That's a great answer. I mean, I usually don't get people in talking about so much more in detail. I mean, I always tell people the joke, don't say I'm going to buy Google stock. That doesn't count, right? Don't
And
do that.
that PS, Katie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Please tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, please.
Yeah, hello@bloomlegalcoach.com. That's the best email, or bloomlegalcoach.com is our website, and you can send over an intake form or call us, and we'd be happy to touch base with you.
All right. Everybody who's been watching, I hope you've been listening to Katie. She sounds wonderful. She knows what she's doing. If you need an advocate, she can do that. But she also does more than that. She can help you get through the transition, which is as important as anything else. So please reach out to her if you need her assistant. And for everybody else, again, if you like this episode, please like and watch us for future episodes. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Mason.
Thanks for listening to the SCV Law and Life podcast. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Mason Roshdian, and I'll see you next time for more conversations on law, life, and what really moves the needle.